Hey, Alin, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you, Eric?
I'm doing great. So you and I don't know each other yet, but Sarai Spear, I believe Donovan told me, was the connector here. She's the one who said we have to interview Alin Leslie. So here we are.
Well, and I would trust every word that woman says.
hmm We love Sarai here on the podcast. I think we've had probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 episodes with her over the years. I think we're in year 7 now with the podcast. So I'm starting to get a little fuzzy with the details. And I'm sure the listeners are a little fuzzy with the deal. We definitely have longtime listeners, but hard to get super clear on the details. She is one of our favorite, though, the Platinum Giraffe, for those listeners who don't know Sarai. So really, really cool that she's a mutual friend. And I'm excited to hear why she thought you would be such a great guest.
Oh, well, Sarai is my sister from another mister. I absolutely love her. She was just here, it was about a month ago, and people swore up and down we were sisters. So we felt that way in our hearts. So we just went with it.
That's all
And
that matters.
I love her. Yeah, so it's how I met Sarai. I think it was last year. I lose track of time too, Eric. It's something. I think it has something to do with age, but it's okay. It'll be our
Maybe
whole
for you, not
secret.
me. I'm 24. I don't know
20.
about you.
Oh, you staggered on that one.
Yeah, I'm 24.
20, 30. Yeah.
2040.
Yeah, 2040. Yeah, so last year, she put some dreadlocks in her hair. And of course, I have a product line that's specifically designed for dreadlocks. And she's just, she's such an honorable, kind and giving person, and I didn't even know who she was. I seriously live under a rock, and people don't believe me, but unless it's thrown in my face, I probably know nothing about it. And apparently she had made a name for herself, and she's done so many wonderful things. We can talk about that later, of course, but she put some dreadlocks in her hair, and she got her hands on one of my products and used it and did an honest review. And Liza Jane, who does my social media for Dollylux, saw the video, and she sent it to me immediately, and she's like, this girl is like freaking amazing. You don't know who she is, and you need to know her. And she's got the dreadlocks, and she did this promo for us. And so I just messaged her, and I was like, hey, thanks so much for using the product. Can I send you some more stuff? And so that's basically how it started. And we connected the minute, even through text message, we were both saying, fuck this and fuck that. And I'm like, okay, we're pretty much separated at birth. And, and a lot of just our thought processes and our beliefs, we really connected. And so she, had the dreadlocks in for maybe a few weeks and took them out, but she was using the products, and we just connected on so many other levels. But that's
Super cool. Super cool. So, listeners, Alin is a hairdresser, salon owner, and founder of Dollylocks, which we've already mentioned a little bit. Dollylocks Organic Hair Care Products, which is a product line that focuses on dreadlocks and extensions, which is really interesting. I don't think that we've had a guest who focuses on dreadlocks yet. So I was pretty excited when Donovan told me about you. So why don't we start with where you're from originally? You said you live under a rock. So tell us where the rock is and how you got into this weird business.
Okay, well, my current rock is St. Petersburg, Florida.
Okay.
My
Very
birth
good.
rock was Lincoln, Nebraska. And then
Okay.
I lived in New York City off and on for 10 years. So before I moved here in 2001, which is St. Petersburg, I lived in New York City.
Okay.
And you want to know how I got started in the hair industry?
Yeah. Why hair?
Why hair? That's a really good question. So I had graduated college a few years ago. I'm sorry, graduated high school. I don't even know.
3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago, I graduated high school. And I just ran into a friend, and she mentioned that she was going to hair school. I had no idea that you even had to go to school for hair. And I've had really bad hair experiences. So it was like, there was no way in my wheelhouse that hair was even, a thought in my mind. But I loved, my friend from high school. She's one of my best friends. And so I was like, well, this would be fun. fun, you know. I was like, we're gonna go to hair school together. So that's how I got my license in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay, so hold on.
Yeah.
So you went to college. Well, I was about to say something totally untrue, which is usually when you go to college, you have an idea of what you want to do, but that's the opposite, I think, of the reality of going to college. I think it's just, I think it's just a default for most people who go to college is that now you go to college, I graduated school. And so did you go to a 4-year school, all 4 years? And what did you study?
No, this was College of Hair Design, so it for cosmetology license.
Okay, so you graduated high school, and then you're like, what am I going to do? Got it. Okay, but you didn't have the background that so many of our guests have, which is I started doing my sister's hair when she was 8, and then all my friends started coming over, and I did 10 years worth of hair before I even went to hair school.
I did. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in a house that my parents didn't make a lot of money, and my mom and my stepdad, when they were married, he had 3 kids that he had full custody of, and my mom had myself and my brother. So we literally became like the dysfunctional Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
And my mom didn't have money to take us to a salon, so she always cut our hair at home. And that's why I didn't realize that getting a cosmetology license was even a thing, because we'd always done hair at home. And we would use Kool-Aid packets, and we'd color our hair with it. It pissed my mom off, but it was just fun. Yeah,
I didn't know that was a thing.
Kool-Aid powder, yeah.
Kool-Aid powder. I was going to use the word stain. It probably stains hair, right?
Yeah.
And is it permanent, like a permanent stain?
I would call it more semi-permanent.
Okay.
Or temporary.
Got it. Does it fade out nicely?
Well, it depends upon the flavor that you use.
Oh my gosh! So is that true?
Reds
like
are going to hold a little bit more,
blues?
just like every day.
That's really funny. I've never heard that before. Okay, so your mom didn't like it because she didn't like the way that it looked.
She didn't like it because we were using Kool-Aid and we were poor, and we were taking the Kool-Aid that we're supposed to be drinking and we were putting it in our hair.
Got it. But did you say to your mom, but look at all the money we're saving by not going to the salon?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not
And
that the salon would have given us that hair color anyways.
That's true. Okay, so
my brothers had mohawks. They were in the punk rock scene, so we were coloring hair. We had clippers. We were shaving things in each other's heads, and yeah. So I did have that upbringing.
I love what would I call it really? It's like when you're that age and you're especially into some sort of, creative endeavor like being in a band or something, you can do whatever with the hair, right? You could absolutely butcher the living shit out of your brother, and it probably looks better for what where he's trying to go with it.
Well, because you're going to be edgy. It's experimental. Yeah.
That's right. You don't want a good haircut, really, when you're that age in a band. So it's the perfect opportunity to slice and dice.
Yes. Yeah, my brother had this amazing mohawk. It was like 3 feet tall, and he would use the egg whites, which also pissed my mom off. He would use egg whites and Aquanet. Aquanet, thank you.
Boom. Drop the mic. I'm done.
Oh.
You know what's funny about Aquanet is that Aquanet, I would say I haven't thought of, heard, or used the term Aquanet in maybe 20 years, except for 2 days ago and right now. So maybe it's making a comeback.
I like it. It was, Aquanet could do anything. And we're talking, we were in the 80s and it was hair. It was time for some serious hair. And besides the Dep Gel,
right, Dep Gel.
Those were the 2 main staples of hair in the 80s.
That's right. Just don't use it around an open flame. Aquanet.
No, I would not recommend that.
For those newbies listening who maybe are too young.
Oh, did we age ourselves?
I think we just did. Yeah, it's like when my guest mentions MySpace, and then I start waxing nostalgic about MySpace in the early 2000s. And I'll just throw out that MySpace, for you itty bitties, your brand new newbies, that was like the first Facebook. It was like one of the first successful social media apps out there. Okay. It wasn't even an app. It was on desktop. It was a website. All right. So Aquanet was this like flame throwing hairspray that could do anything. So I love the fact that twice in 2 days we talked about Aquanet. All right. So you're in this kind of experimentation thing with your Brady Bunch family cobbled together, and your brothers are in bands and stuff like that. So super fun. So you experimented, and then you decided to go to hair school. How was hair school for you?
Well, halfway through hair school, I broke my wrist. So hair school was very interesting.
Doing what? Skateboarding?
It was young and stupid and not paying attention and
jumping off a roof?
Little car accident. Nobody was hurt.
Your fault or somebody else's fault?
Yes. So back then, keep in mind, I have not smoked in 30 years. Okay. Oh, I aged myself again. But I was
in 10 years.
And I was smoking a cigarette, and I dropped it. And I reached down to grab the cigarette for obvious reasons, and I hit a parked car.
Wow.
And broke my wrist.
Did you hit it hard? Like, how fast were you going?
I mean, it was residential, but I'm pretty sure I was, I was up there, 25.
Is that illegal to smoke a cigarette? I mean, nowadays, most people don't smoke cigarettes. There's
thank God.
Whatever other versions of it, with the vape and the gummies and other things. But I guess some people still smoke. But is it illegal to smoke and drive?
It should be.
I've never heard of that.
It is. You see it all the time. Mm-hmm. That's going down a whole nother path of people flicking their butts out the windows, and
right.
And you're gonna I'll go crazy. So.
And then the people behind them spraying their hair with Aquanet just explode.
I know. You know what? That could be something. I think.
See how I brought Aquanet back into the conversation?
I see how you did that. Yeah, it was like a full circle.
So smooth. Okay, so you broke your wrist, which meant what? You had to stop school?
Well, it's kind of on light and lame duty. I was still going through school, but I was finishing up some of the minor credits. And back then your bones heal pretty quick. So I think I was only out for like a month and a half. And then I came back with like this superpower wrist and became, I was a pretty successful hairdresser for many years.
Nice. So you were like teasing faster than anybody else. You could do those blowouts. Your wrist was like twice as strong.
That's exactly. Nice. I was like power woman.
Okay. So where were you in the landscape of students? Were you the worst, the best, or somewhere in between?
Well, I'm going to say, because I was very passionate about it. I love art and I love being creative. I'm not such a stickler for rules and regulations. I walk a fine line, I'm a law-abiding citizen, but when it comes to rules that, I like to test the waters. Okay. So I was very creative and I did very well in hair school. And, but sometimes, I was I could be less than favorable when it came to me not wanting to stay all day on a Saturday and kind of fudge my hours a little bit, So I was a little naughty, but I really enjoyed hair school. I really did.
All right. So when you played hooky, where would you go?
That's a really good question. Probably nowhere worthy to even mention, right. Just anywhere but where I didn't want to be at that time.
Right. It's probably like normal school. Like you play hooky and you like go hang out under the bleachers.
Exactly.
Right? It's not like it. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't go or do anything.
All right. So you graduated, and where'd you go?
So my very first job right out of hair school, I was working at a family cutter kind of place because they had a sign-on bonus. This is me being real here.
Nice.
So the sign-on bonus, it was like $200. And back then, that was a lot of money. So, but you had to complete, I think it was like 8 weeks to get the sign-on bonus. It wasn't very long. So I signed on, I did some haircuts. To me, it was just kind of like an extenuation of hair school, and got my sign-on bonus, and then I quit. And there was this really cool.
Oh,
I know Family
sorry.
Cutters is gonna like send me a bill for they want their sign-on bonus
I
back.
could just see the Family Cutter executives deciding whether to enact a sign-on bonus. And
Yeah.
one person's like, we should do a sign-on bonus. Somebody else is like, no, we can't do the sign-on bonus because as soon as we pay them, they're going to quit. And the other person's like, no, they're not. No, they're going to be, loyal to us for years. And here we are. As soon as you got your bonus, out the door.
I'm out. Yeah. Well, after that, a friend introduced me to a friend that had a really cool salon. This is in Lincoln, Nebraska, and it was called By Design. I don't know how, I just remembered that. And I loved it. It was really cool, and because they were doing kind of funky stuff, and that's the direction I wanted to go. And I was there for probably about a year, and then
That's a long time.
yeah, and then I kind of got out of the hair industry for a while, and then
What?
yeah,
Where'd you go?
well, I went to New York City.
To do what?
Oh, you know what? I didn't. Did I go to New York right then? No. Yes, I went to New York City. God, now
Why?
I'm like, now I need to start making notes for my book. I went to New York City and I was a nanny. I was a live-in nanny because I wanted to get out of Nebraska. I was in Lincoln,
Okay.
Nebraska. I was landlocked. I
That's
was,
fair.
my brain was going, everywhere else. And I was and this was before, I mean, you have to think, like, this was before internet. There was no YouTube. I wasn't just gonna, like, what does it look like? And, you literally have to go there to experience it.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. Pre-Instagram. You can't just bring up, anywhere in the world. So
No.
you wanted to move to the big city. So you just did.
I just did. Yeah.
Okay. Did your well, I'll just let you tell. So you became a nanny probably because you just needed money, and then what'd you do?
Well, it wasn't, it was fun, but I wanted to experience. And at that time, when I was in high school, my mom had put me through modeling school. And so I'm thinking, okay, I went through this whole program for modeling. I'm stuck in Lincoln, Nebraska. And of course, back then you went to New York City if you wanted to have a career in modeling or Paris.
Right.
So, and of course I didn't have the funds or the the backing to make it across the sea.
Right.
So I went to New York City and I was a nanny, and I was pretty thin back then. And the first modeling agent, I had a friend that helped me put my little portfolio together. I had no experience in modeling at all except for the school that I went to. And the first interview that I went to, and I hear stories all the time about actors and actresses talking about how they were like shunned and ridiculed, but they never gave up. I gave up my modeling career pretty quick. The first place I went into, they're like, you need to lose like 40 pounds. And I was skinny, but they were saying I needed to lose. This is Kate Moss
They
days.
literally said 40 pounds.
Oh yeah, like they were like, you're too fat. They literally told me I was too fat.
Wow.
And I'm like, well,
And 40 pounds. I mean, that's hard to imagine, but I guess that just tells you how unhealthy
yes. Oh, it was there.
that style was back then.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean-
I was told stories about girls eating like cotton balls and just
Cotton balls?
to put something into their stomach so that they weren't hungry, so they wouldn't eat. I heard
Shut
some really
up.
weird. Yes, I heard some crazy stories when I was in New York.
So the cotton ball doesn't digest. I want to.
I don't know.
I want to connect these dots to its natural conclusion. So the cotton ball makes its way through and just goes out.
I don't know. It would have to, I would assume. But that was one of the things I was told, and I'm like, that this is
Wow.
not my lifestyle. I'm not
crazy.
subjecting myself to any of that because I love food. And so my modeling career was over probably within like 20 minutes.
That's probably good.
It was. It would have been a very unhealthy lifestyle for me.
Yeah. Okay. So that dream comes to a crashing end, and then what?
So I really enjoyed doing hair. I did, and so I started thinking, I wanted to go to college. I wanted to do something. I had experience, and this is where my life, like I'm telling you, I've done a lot in this lifetime. So I was just trying to think of creative ways that I could go to school, go to college, do something more to add to like something with an art degree. And my stepfather was diagnosed with a fatal disease when I was in New York City. So I
Sorry.
decided that I wanted to go back home and spend as much time as I could with him. He ended up living another 15 years,
Oh, good.
which was great. But I went back home and then decided. I don't know why I did this, but I decided to go into the military.
What?
Because, well, I was
Record
told,
scratch. Wait, do I
yeah,
have a record scratch audible thing here? No, I don't. I have laughing. I have a drum joke. I have clapping. I have a drum roll. No record scratch. So record scratch? Why the military?
because I wanted to get my college paid for. And
Got
like
it.
I said before, I came from a family that didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think, how can I do this? So I went and talked to a recruiter and they asked me, well, what do you see yourself doing? And I'm like, well, I love animals. And he told me, he flat out told me that I could go into the Navy and I could train dolphins. Like, this is
No.
how naive I
What?
was. Yes, yes.
What is
So I
this?
was like,
SeaWorld? Is this the
well,
SeaWorld branch of the military?
I thought it existed. I was a young, naive girl, and so I signed up for the Navy. I went through boot camp in Great Lakes, Chicago, and they sent me off to, which I loved boot camp, by the way. That was fun.
What time of year? Winter or
It
summer?
it was cold. It was cold. It was. I think it was in the fall because when I graduated, I went to, or when I, my RMA school was in San Diego.
Okay.
Something. It was pretty cold because I remember when I left, I was really happy because it was warm there.
I bet. Okay. So how long were you in the military?
Boot camp was 13 months, and then I
Boot
went.
camp is 13 months.
I think no, I was in for 13 months. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. Boot camp.
I'm like,
was,
wow.
No,
Either the SeaWorld version of the military is much more strict than I thought, or you were so bad that they
this
just
is-
weren't graduating you from boot camp.
Well, this is what happened when I was in boot camp because they told me, I was going to go swim with dolphins, but of course I had to take the swim test. So while I'm in boot camp, I was taking the swim test, and they told me that I did the butterfly stroke wrong. And so they weren't going to pass me.
What is this, the Olympic version of the U.S. military? Who cares if you could do the
story.
butterfly stroke?
Well, that's what I said because I was going for search and rescue because that was the one thing that was closest to getting myself into working, like being close to the ocean. And, when I was going to be like captain,
Yeah.
that I was going to do something with dolphins. Like,
That
I have
sounds
no idea.
fun.
It does sound fun,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I was doing my swim test and they wouldn't pass me because I did the butterfly stroke wrong. And they refused to let me retake the test. So instead of me going to search and rescue, which is what I wanted to do, they put me in radioman school, which that was, that's like the Morse code, and you sit on a ship and you communicate.
Oh, got it.
Because I was smart and I passed the security clearance, and so there's like these other jobs that you can do. And so that's where they sent me. But after that, it just put a bad taste in my mouth. And like any stubborn girl, it's like when you're done, you're done. And so I was a little reckless. I
Did you
did
go
things.
AWOL?
I did.
Shut up. I was kidding. You did? For those of you in the listening audience who don't know what AWOL is, AWOL means absent without leave, which basically meant that Alin played hooky. And
ran away.
you don't play hooky in the military.
No, you do not.
Even if you're the dolphin trainer at SeaWorld version of the military.
Yes. I told you this podcast was going to get real.
Well, this is heading in a very interesting direction. Okay, so where'd you go? What did you do? Like, did you break out?
No, you just walk out. I just walked away.
No, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. You just left?
Well, I got in a lot of trouble. So
What do you mean you got in trouble? You got in trouble doing what?
So when you're in the military and you're living in the barracks, you have to do watch. So it's basically like a job. So you watch over your division, because the men are in one barracks and the females are another, and so they assign you these times that you stand watch, and you also
Like at
have.
night.
sometimes at night. It can be day too.
Okay.
And then they also do roll call multiple times a day. So because I was angry and decided I'm not going to have any of this,
Because of failing the butterfly exam.
because yes, I was
Okay,
very mad.
you're
I
right.
was very mad, and so I paid another girl. I'm probably gonna get arrested for this. I paid another girl to call my name out for. I don't. You probably can't get away with it this day and age, but back then I did.
Okay.
And so I paid her to just say here when they called my name,
Yeah,
but
that
I was
seems
never there.
easy.
It was easy. It was easy, and I was I was a wild child. I was a little rule breaker, and
Okay, but where'd you go? Where,
just
under
anywhere.
the bleachers?
Yeah, under the bleachers. I go to the I can't remember the name of it right now, but the little snack shop, like where they have the shop at the annex. I think
Okay.
it's-
You,
I don't
so,
remember. It
all
was a
right.
long time ago.
So nowhere tremendously productive or
Yeah, so
interesting.
I was just not showing up. I
Okay.
wasn't doing things I was supposed to be doing. And so I got in trouble, and they had me go talk to the captain a few times, and then they decided that they were going to punish me, and they were having me do like daily watches. So I would just go back to my room and go to sleep.
Oh my God, shut
And they
up.
had it with me. They were pretty mad. So I was going to get in trouble. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just out of here. So that's when I went AWOL, and I was gone for a few months.
Well,
But the bad thing,
whoa. So hold on. Can you not just go to them and be like, I really don't want to do this anymore?
no, but I'll get to that part.
Okay. Okay. Keep going.
So I'll try to wrap this up.
Well,
But
I'm enjoying it. So you can't just say, hey guys, I'm done?
I don't like this. No, you can't. I tried.
Really?
I went
Okay.
to the psychologist. I went to everybody. I talked to everybody. I was like, this is not for me. I just don't like it. And that was not a good enough answer. So I went away just to clear my head. And the bad thing about going AWOL, though, is that if you don't take your uniforms with you, because you have to go back. And so I knew I had to go back. And I went back a few months later, and they make you buy all your stuff again. Like
Ew.
your pants, your shirts, your jackets, your boots, like because you have to be in uniform.
So you took your uniforms and, I don't know, put them in your closet or something?
No, I left everything.
Oh, you left. You left.
I left everything. Like I just like in the middle of the night just
And you have
walked
to
away.
buy them
When
because,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And you have to,
be in uniform.
you what?
You have to be in uniform when you're
Right.
on base.
Okay, so when you're AWOL, you spent a couple months out doing whatever. Did you have a job for those 2 months?
No, I didn't. I bought a car. I don't know who in their right mind would have sold me a car, but I didn't have much money, and I think I'd probably put down like a couple $100, and I like got this loan, high interest rate loan for a car that ended up breaking down, and then I had to like trade it in. That was a whole nother story. But I ended up in Iowa. So I went from California to Iowa because I had some family there, and I stayed with them, and they were sort of my encouragement to, hey, you need to go back. And I'm like,
Okay.
all right. So I cleared my mind. I was feeling better. I went back. And they weren't going to let me out. This is where it gets good. So they weren't going to let me out of the military. And so I went down to the beach and I got some pot. Back then it was illegal. Now
Yeah.
it's not so much.
Yeah,
But I went
now
down
it's
to
like
the-
totally normal. Like,
I know now it's like everybody does it,
Yeah.
except for me.
Right.
No, I
Same. Me either. Like I'm not good on weed.
Oh, I'm terrible.
Yeah.
I'm like that's what I tell people. I'm like, you don't want me to do that.
No, you don't want
It's
that.
It's not.
It
it's
gets
not good.
it gets ugly.
Yeah, it gets ugly quick.
So you went down to the beach. You got
went
some
to the-
illicit Schedule 1 drugs.
I did. I went down to Sunset Beach and got some weed and brought it back because my roommate, she wanted out too, and there were a couple other guys that we were friends with that hated the military too.
Oh
So
my God! You had your little cabal. You had like an internal cabal against the
Yep.
U.S. military.
we did, yep.
Yeah.
So the four of us got together and we smoked some pot, and I marched my happy ass down to the captain.
Shut up! High as a
yeah.
kite.
Well, I waited till the next day because it was pretty
Ah,
late.
got it.
So I went down there the next day and I said, I smoke pot. and when you smoke, or when they think that you have smoked, or someone reports you to have done drugs, they have to test you. And I said, oh, by the way, these other 3 people did it too. And so they tested all of us. Of course, we all popped positive for marijuana.
Yeah.
And so then we had to go to Miramar. It is a prison, but we were restriction. We weren't in prison. We just had to go to restriction in Miramar. And they were trying to hold on to me for as long as they could to make an example out of me.
I was going to say, this story is heading towards treason somewhere. There must be, we're heading in that.
Let me just say, I left with an other than honorable discharge. So I wasn't, it wasn't honorable, but it wasn't dishonorable.
Oh, okay.
It just wasn't for me. They should have an option that if you just say, this isn't for me, then they're just like, okay, because, I wasted a lot of people's time.
Right.
And I smoked pot that I didn't want to, you know?
You didn't want to smoke pot, but you did anyway because of the military. The military made you smoke pot.
If I would have had another option, that would have been ideal.
I am the last person to give any opinion on what the military should or shouldn't do. But it sure seems like there should be an opt-out.
I agree. I agree with that. Because we're all so different. Like, we don't, especially when you're young, It does have, I will say the military has great structure. And so someone that needs that stability in their life, or just that camaraderie, the military is really great for that. There's been a lot of success stories with the military. And I have a lot of respect for what it does for the people that enjoy it and need it.
Same. Just for the record, I'm so grateful for anyone who's willing to be in the military. Enormous respect for the whole thing. Your story notwithstanding. Okay, so
I was young.
So yes, you're young. You didn't know what was going on. Okay, so you finally force your exit from the military.
I did.
And then they boot you out on the street. And where'd you go?
At first I went to Washington State. I had one of the friends of mine that also was released, lived up there. So I went and stayed with him and his family. And then I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I ended up going to Georgia and spent some time in Atlanta, Georgia. Which was very interesting. And still, I was not doing hair at the time. When I was in high school, I had a job with Barnes & Noble that I really enjoyed a lot. And before I went into hair school, I was working for Barnes & Noble, and I did a lot of the periodicals and the author relations, and I loved it. I loved it. And they still to this day have the little Starbucks cafes in there. And the one that I worked at had a Starbucks cafe, so they had me more or less manage it because I just thought it was fun. And so after I got out of the military, I went down, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I signed back on with Barnes & Noble, and it was good. I enjoyed it. I was having a good time. And, but I just wanted to do something a little different. And so that's when I found myself going back home I just wanted to figure stuff out, because I had gone through a lot.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be near my family. So I could kind of, not really hit the reset button, but just figure out what I wanted to do with the next chapter of my life.
Right. You could take a breather. You're no longer on the lam, and the military was not looking for you. So you could take your time. Yes. So you went back to Nebraska, and you were hanging out with your family. Okay, and so roughly how old are you at this point?
At this point, I was 20.
Holy crap. So all of that happened in that short of a period of time?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I thought we were years in the future. I thought you were going to say you were 27. Okay. So
there's a lot that happened between that and 27.
Jesus, this is going to be a 5-episode series.
We're going to have 100 episodes. What the hell did Alin do next?
Where in the world is Alin? Okay. So you're in Nebraska, and then what did you do?
Well, since I still had my ties to New York and I really enjoyed my time in New York City, I kind of wanted to go back. And one of my dear friends, Kevin, he was my roommate at one point when I was still in Nebraska, and he was going to NYU. He was a dance major. And he was getting ready to move out of his dorm, and we had kept in contact, and he just mentioned, he's like, well, maybe you should come to New York and we can get an apartment together. And I'm like, so let's do it. So I just packed a couple suitcases and moved my happy ass to, oh, you know what? I didn't go to New York then. I went to, oh my God. Wow, I forgot about this whole chapter of my life. I went to Portland, Oregon. So
oh my God, you're crisscrossing the country.
I
like
know.
this is amazing. Okay, so
you
went to Portland, Oregon. I'm like, I've got a map on my screen. I'm pinning things, just try to keep it in
I'm literally
order.
doing the same thing. I'm writing it down.
Okay, so you went to Portland, Oregon. Why? You have a friend there?
I did not. I knew some people that have moved there. Well, no, that's not true. So my childhood best friend, she was living in Texas and then just recently moved to Portland, Oregon. Mm-hmm. And this was probably MySpace is probably how I kept tabs on most of this, to be honest with you.
All roads connect through MySpace.
I know. That's where it all began. And so
what was your background song on MySpace? Do you remember?
Yes, it was Timberland, and it was a song.
The country music band.
Got no money. Something to take you on a date.
Keep going. Sing the whole thing for us.
I don't know it. That was my song.
Isn't Timbaland or is it Timberland?
I think it's Timba is how you say it.
Was it a? When I think, is there a country band? Isn't there a country band named Timberland, or is this a rapper?
He would have been considered a rapper.
Right. Okay. Oh, I remember. Yes. You're bringing me all the way back. Beep, beep, beep. All the way back to the early 2000s. Okay. I'm with you. So that was your background song. Nice. Okay.
What was yours?
I don't remember. I almost didn't ask you the question because I was thinking, you don't remember your song. You can't ask her about her song.
My memory, it's crazy how it holds on to little things.
All right. So take us to Oregon.
Okay, so I'm taking you to Oregon. So when I left Atlanta, I pit stopped in Nebraska, and because of my relations with Barnes and Noble, and I just wanted to go somewhere else. I didn't want to stay in Nebraska, and no, not that I don't love Nebraska, because it is my heart and my soul, and I like to go home and visit every once in a while. My childhood girlfriend was out there, and then I had known of a few people that have moved out there, and they all seemed to enjoy it very much. So I'm like, let's check it out. So I transferred with Barnes & Noble to a Barnes & Noble in Portland, Oregon. And that's what took me out there. And then I ended up getting a job at this really cool, I had multiple jobs when I was there. I always do that. Like I'm a serial jobist.
Yeah, a serial employee.
Yes, I'm a serial anything. Yeah. So I was doing a lot of visual merchandising, and I was also I did a lot of. My mom taught me how to sew when I was younger. So there was this store there called Spartacus Leathers, and some of my friends had worked there, and it was just fun. And so I ended up working there as their seamstress. So like when people would go, they would try stuff on, and they would rip it or tear it, and I would sew it and fix it. But I loved that job too, and so I had some really great jobs when I was there. So I was there, and I ended up in a relationship, and it wasn't healthy, and I knew that, and I kind of felt like my time was ticking, and I wanted a little more adventure. So I went down to LA.
Oh yes, of course.
For a few minutes, yeah.
All roads cross through LA as well. MySpace in LA.
Yeah, and LA was also not a healthy place for me, and I was working at Tower Records, and so
very cool.
Yeah, I was meeting a lot of artists, and
on Sunset. in
Yes,
Hollywood?
yes.
Nice. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was the legendary tower.
yeah,
That might have
yeah.
been the first, or who cares?
It was.
It
It
was
was.
okay. Yeah,
Yep.
that's
So,
huge. So all of a sudden, you just plopped yourself right in the middle of the music and entertainment industry,
I
and
did.
you're 20 nothing, and
Yeah.
you were probably
I was
having a hell of a time.
21, 22 at this time. I was having a hell of a time.
Oh yeah,
And I was working as part of the artist relations, so I met, I got to meet a lot of, actors and actresses and musicians, and a lot of backstage.
fast
Keep in
lane.
mind though, I was
That's the fast
never,
lane.
yeah, I drink alcohol, but and to this day, I still don't do drugs. I can't, my body does not like them. Like, and I think it's a
Same.
control thing too. Like, I like
Samesies.
to, yeah. So I never got myself in trouble like that. It was just poor decisions, young,
Yeah.
doing dumb shit and
Staying out late.
I don't even think I slept.
Yeah.
There's so much to do.
Yeah.
So I was there for a heartbeat, literally a few months. Went back to Portland. Um, wasn't happy. And I wanted to be. It just wasn't for me. And so then that's when my friend Kevin, when we reconnected, and he's like, "Come to New York." So I packed up the few things that I had, and I went to New York City, and that was my second time going back. And I loved it, and got myself a little job doing visual merchandising again. And one day, it was Trash and Vaudeville. It's on it's a third down in the. I know it's not there anymore. Like, everything's changed so much, but. So I was working there, and I was helping the owners. They had a clothing line called Trip NYC. So it was Ray and Dane Goodman, and they basically took me in, and they were such amazing people, and I loved working for them. And that was another really cool thing, because also at Trash and Vaudeville, we had a lot of celebrities and musicians and artists and actors and actresses coming in, and so it was always just fun. It was always exciting. And one day I was working, and this girl, Wendy, came in, and she's like, "I love your hair." Because at the time I was a goth girl, and I had black hair, and I was also a fire performer. So
Whoa, record scratch. What? How did you, where did that come into play? A fire performer?
Yeah.
Did they teach you that in the military too?
No, they did not. They did not. I might have stayed if they would. Like, that would have been intriguing.
Between fire and dolphins, you would have stayed.
I know, like, that's my dream job right there.
Right.
So I had met someone, because I was doing some hair and makeup, and there was a latex designer. Her name is the Baroness, and she was a
boy.
very famous latex designer. So I modeled for her, and I also did some hair for her for some of the fashion shows. And one of the models was doing a fire performance, and I was so intrigued by it. So we started chatting, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll teach you." So I was still doing visual merchandising for Trash and Vaudeville. I also started working doing in-store displays, like window displays for Old Navy and Diesel, and I was fire performing. So I literally didn't sleep, and. So anyway, so I was working at
And latex modeling.
Yeah, and latex modeling. So I was working at Trash and Vaudeville one day, and Wendy came in. She's like, "I love your hair," because I was doing fires. I had black hair, and then I did a red and yellow. So it went from yellow to red to black. She's like, "Who does your hair?" And I said, "Well, I do it." And she's like, "Are you a hairdresser?" And I said, "Well, I used to be." So she helped me through the whole process of reciprocity, because I still had my license in Lincoln, Nebraska. But New York didn't reciprocate with New York, or Nebraska. New York didn't with Nebraska, even though I had enough hours, because Nebraska was 2,100, and New York at the time I think was like 1,100 or something. And so she helped me through the whole process, because I had to get a license in another state in order to get the license in New York. So she was so helpful with that. And so I started doing hair for her, and I worked for her for probably, I would say, gosh, it was a while, probably like a year.
Wow.
I worked for her. And there was a salon right around the corner, and I'm not going to remember the name of it right now. But if I do, I will definitely give them credit for it. But they did dreadlocks,
Okay.
and I was so intrigued by it. And you know, I like my when I was doing fire, my friend Anna and I, we used to go to the hair store and we'd get like bulk synthetic hair and we'd attach it to our hair and we'd like makeshift just like this volume and like crazy like club hair.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it never occurred to me that people were wearing dreadlocks as a hairstyle. And this was back in 1997, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so there was this salon on the corner. It's driving me crazy that I can't remember the name of it. But one of the people there, they did dreadlocks. And so I started inquiring about it. And Seth and Wendy owned the salon that I was working at. And Seth knew this woman. Her name was Sonia Peterson. And she had her salon. It's called Hair Police in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And he's like, she comes down to New York and works with this girl, Carol. And next time she's here, I'm going to introduce you. Because he worked with a lot of celebrities as well, like doing their hair. And so anyway, so she came to town. He introduced us. We hit it off right away. And Sonia and I became really good friends. And she kind of took me under her wing and was teaching me this method that she came up with called a dread perm, where... It's really it was the concept made sense, but the execution was not necessarily desirable.
Sounds like a mess.
It was a little bit of a mess. So they backcomb the hair and twist it onto perm rods.
There you go.
And perm the shit out of it.
Oh my
So
God.
regardless if your hair was blonde, if it was virgin, like they would use the same perm. And essentially they were trying to compress the hair chemically.
Yeah.
And at the time, it seemed genius to me.
Yeah.
And but she also did a lot of synthetic dreadlocks and braids. And she used to do, this is me living under a rock. He's a blues musician that has the crazy funky hair.
You're talking about...
Oh man,
I can't think of it. Okay, I know who you're talking about. The listeners, I wonder what percentage of the listeners right now are like, oh, anyway. Okay, so him.
Yes, so she used to do a lot of colorful hair. I know she did Betsy Johnson's hair.
Oh, cool.
A few times, and this was back in the day. So a lot of like crazy, fun, funky hair. And so she also did this dread perm, and there was a whole story. And if you want to like Google it and learn about Sonia Peterson, the founder of Hair Police, she was an amazing, iconic woman. She started the very first like hair Yahoo page. Remember Yahoo?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was called Dreads and Extensions or Dreadlocks and Hair Extensions or something.
Interesting.
But it was like the very first like forum, before.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she was such a pioneer and like such a role model for me. So I started working with her when she would come through town. She did what she called these dread tours. And so when she came through New York City, I would assist her and start learning her techniques. And we became really, really good friends really quick. And she had some connections in Amsterdam. She'd go there a lot. So like when she did these dread tours, like it was literally all over the world. And it was just so intriguing to me. And she, like I said, I was just like she was such an inspiration.
It's such a cool thing. I mean, it's such a niche and it's such a specialty. I'm fascinated by the whole thing. Okay, so you were fascinated by it too. So did you kind of glom onto that whole thing?
I did, and she also, because I loved hair extensions, and the salon that I worked at, they did a method called raccoon, and it was a fusion method. And I'm not saying that it always caused damage to the hair, but back then, I mean, we didn't have the techniques that we have now, and it was literally like a hard glue that you were gluing hair onto hair and using acetone to remove it. So it wasn't the healthiest thing, and I've always been so passionate about learning innovative ways of accomplishing hair art. And Seth had also told me that Sonia did what's called a pinch braid. So she did a lot of like weaving techniques and pinch braids, and so I wanted to learn it. And so so it was the dreadlocks and the hair extensions, and I just became obsessed with it. So I quit my visual merchandising jobs and started doing hair full time.
Lenny Kravitz?
No, but
Okay.
I do know Lenny Kravitz. I spent a weekend with Lenny Kravitz.
You did? Is this part of your LA experience?
No, this is Miami. When I was living here in St. Pete, one of my clients, his name's Dodd, and he is a celebrity personal trainer. He's an amazing man.
Okay.
And he trains Lenny Kravitz. And so I was going down to do his hair, and he said, well, you wouldn't mind sharing the house with Lenny Kravitz, would you, for the weekend? I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Lenny Kravitz was my roommate for a couple of days.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, he is a sweetheart and a brilliant, brilliant man.
That's awesome. So you got into this this kind of subculture of hair, and you're fascinated by it. And has this finally been the catalyst to keep you interested in this industry?
Absolutely. Yes. She took me under her wing, and she used this brand of synthetic hair called Trimco. And that was sort of, her being a pioneer and this for me anyways, of this industry of, funky club hair. And, and I respect the spiritual aspect of dreadlocks, and that's like a whole nother podcast probably. But just what she was teaching me the art of hair, and dreadlocks were just a part of that. And I loved how you could create the texture and the fullness, and even adding color to hair without chemically altering it. Because the methods that she did with the pinch braids, you could attach anything to the hair with a pinch braid and tying it with a slip knot. And so, yes, I was hooked, and that's where my dreadlock journey truly took off and began.
Okay, so right here is a perfect kind of transition, because we've gotten an hour here on the episode. I usually don't like to go more than that. And we've gotten your story, which is fascinating. You've taken us all over. You've ping-ponged us from West Coast to East Coast to back and back and back. You've gone AWOL. You've done drugs in your attempt to get out of the military.
One time.
Only one time, but that's all it took. And various other things. You've had Lenny Kravitz as a roommate. And so that brings us to my first question that I wrote for you. So we've gone through an hour, and I haven't even gotten to any of my questions. So
and I have so much more to share with you.
And you have so much more to share. So will you come back, and then we can start talking about like your product, the dreadlock, the culture, the respect. I have questions about dreadlocks, and dreadlocks are kind of this fascinating things, even in our own industry, where most people don't really know much about them, or how to do them, or get them, or get rid of them, or to treat them, maintain them, etc. So I have a bunch of questions. So you want to come back and we'll do another episode where we talk about all that stuff?
Eric, I would be honored.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh. So, all right. So Alin is laughing. She's laughing at my screen. Unless you're watching on YouTube, you don't know what the hell we're talking about. But she's laughing at the fact that now and then my screen detects hand signals, and then puts up an image on the screen. And so as soon as she said that she would be honored, or she would like to come back for a second episode, all of a sudden on my screen there was a thumbs down.
He gave me a thumbs down.
Yes, which of course I didn't want to be there. You could see it on the video. You have to go to YouTube to watch. So even when I don't do a thumbs up with my actual hand, sometimes it gives an image of a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's a weird software program.
It's pretty cool, though. I like that.
Pretty cool. Yeah, and for some reason it doesn't work for my guests. So go figure.
I'm not, it takes a lot to offend me.
I know. I don't make the software. I just use it. Okay. So this was super fun, Alin, and I can't wait to continue the conversation.
I can't wait either. I'm excited. It's been fun, and I appreciate you taking me down memory lane.
Of
'Cause
course.
I know, like it's bringing back some memories. I'll probably have nightmares tonight,
Oh,
but
boy. All right. Talk soon.
good times. Thanks, Eric.